Well,
Yes, you do.
Thank you.
yes. So we are going to get started. And so again, we are honored that you graced us to be our first guest in this podcast entitled Her Journey. And the H.E.R in Journey stands for Healing, Evolving, and Redefining Women. So
Mhm.
I'm one of your hosts. I'm Jackie Cameron. And my
I
co-host,
am Cassandra Cass.
yes, so we've been friends forever. So this is
Yeah.
a sister team effort that she's helping me walk out my vision, and we're going to do it together. So,
Wonderful.
so we're going to get started with. I know you got an opportunity to see some of the questions. Hopefully, I was able to look at it.
Mhm.
I think when we look at the questions, our first question for you is, what would you say is or was one of your biggest challenges, and how did you overcome it?
Wow. Sometimes I feel like those kind of questions are situational because it can change from day to day. So asking me right now what was one of my biggest challenges and how I overcame it, I think that would really relate to the time when I was having marital issues. We were having, my husband was like on one way and I was on another way. And the biggest challenge in that was learning to find me for me. And it was realizing that I had let go of me a long time ago. I had become a wife and a mother and nothing else. And that all of Charlotte had gone away. And I forgot to live. I forgot to dream. I forgot to take risks for myself.
Yeah.
And how I overcame that was, one, I had to sit in that for a minute. I had to recognize that that's what I did, that I can't blame anyone else for that. That was never a requirement for marriage, or was never a requirement for motherhood. It was never a requirement for being a daughter or being a worker in the church or being at work. None of that was ever a requirement. We take on that role. We try to be all things to all people, and then we forget how to be anything to ourselves.
Absolutely.
So once I sat in that, I had to take the risk of finding me again, finding the things that made me happy again. And I will say it was a scary journey, because when you don't think about yourself for so long, when you start to think about yourself, the world tells you you're being selfish.
Yes.
Realize that I just said this to a coworker the other day, that when you're on an airplane and they tell you that in a case of emergency, put the mask on yourself first, that's a real statement. Like, you can't help anyone if you're dead.
Yes.
It's a survival statement for real.
I say that all
For real. Like, you can't, there's nothing you can do for your family, for your job, for your church, for your community, if you have nothing to give. So if you're giving off of an empty tank, you're just empty. You're just depleted. And so, like, I think that's a journey I'm still on. There's some days when I'm really, really good at it. And then there's some days when I'm not good at it. And I have to remind myself, oh, wait, kick it back in gear. And I think it came up for me again when I got sick, because it was the getting well that made it hard to live again, which seems counterintuitive. Like, it doesn't seem like it makes sense. But it was almost like in my brain, that was blessing enough. Like, just keep on and doing what you're doing. And then I had to remember again, and there'll be something else that will that I'll have to remind myself again. But knowing how it felt to feel depleted and live depleted, I'll never want to live that way again.
Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
that's so amazing. And when I hear you talk about that, I always say self-care is not selfish.
Not at all.
You cannot pour from an empty cup. And so we take on, like you say, these roles of mother, wife, daughter, aunt, sister, cousin, And then we forget about our individuality, who we are, how we show up as an individual to the party, I like to say. And, everyone around us is like, they're thriving and they look happy, but deep down in ourselves, we're like, so, we're sinking. Like, can somebody just throw me a lifeguard because nobody sees you?
Yeah.
It's kind of sinking because you're just being mom, wife, daughter, and you're doing all these things. But inside you're like, you know what? I've lost me. And so the fact that you were self-aware of that, and I love that you took 100% responsibility for it.
Yes.
That's something that we don't do. We're going to blame it on everybody else. It's never my fault. But to take 100% responsibility for where I am is just a beautiful thing to own, and then you can move forward from it because now you have taken responsibility for it. So thinking of that, so today, what would you say if I were to ask you, like, I am? How would you complete that statement?
I am on a journey. I am full of joy.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
The biggest thing that I realize in any tough situation is happiness is situational. Happiness has to have something happening.
Yes.
But joy is a choice.
Yes.
So if I wake up every day with joy, then I can conquer whatever. Like, even when things are a mess around, I can still find a place where I can be seated in that place of joy that's going to give me the strength to be able to push through. And, it's so funny how, like, we quote these scriptures when we're in church and we make these statements all the time.
Yes.
But it's not until they become real to you.
Yes.
And really understanding that the joy of the Lord is my strength.
Yeah.
Like, until you're joyless, you don't understand what it is to rely on the joy of the Lord.
Yes. Yeah. That is so
and I had to admit that I was joyless for a while. So I'll never be joyless again.
Yes, yes. Because now you have to distinguish between happiness and joy. Like you said, it's conditional. If you do this, then, but if you don't, you can control my happiness. Joy is like inner inside you. Like nobody can take that from you, even if you're having a bad day. That joy comes deep down inside, and that's where you want to be.
Absolutely.
So it's
all the time too. Like, there's always going to be something negative that can happen. There's always going to be something bad that can happen. You turn on the TV, you turn on the news, there's life situations that are happening. Family members are having, issues. There's always something. And it has the ability, if we allow it, to weigh us down.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have to make a choice not to be weighed down by the cares of life.
And I feel like that joy is a choice. Like when you said that, it made me think of for New Year's weekend, I went away to New York. So I was driving. I went out, put my bags in my car, get ready to start my car, and it's not going into gear. So I'm like, are you serious? Like I'm ready to go. I go back in the house and I come back up. Let me try this again. Still not going into gear. And then I sat there for a moment and said, you know what? Nope, this is not going to mess up my weekend. I turned off my car. I went in the house. I got on, I think South Station bus, whatever. I was like, the next bus was coming at 12. I took a lift to South Station. I said, this car will be here when I get back. I'm going with that moment. I could have been like, call my friend. I'm not coming, this and this, not. I was like, no, this car's going to be here when I got. And then as I'm getting ready to get in the lift to South Station, I started to think to myself, I'm like, God, you are so good, because I could have been on the highway when that car stopped. I could have stopped for gas. I could have got to New York and they couldn't get home. I said, you love me so much that you let this happen in my driveway. In moments like that, we can make that all about us and all, woe is me and now I can't. But to find the blessing even in that, I was just like, I'm still going. And I had a great time, came back home, and I dealt with my car on Tuesday to find out it was a minor adjustment. When the tow guy came, he's just like, what's going on? I said, it's not going into gear. He said, okay, let me jump in. He jumped in. And he moves my mat my mat light was stuck, and when he moved the mat, the car went into park, drive back.
Stop
So
it.
I say to him, I said, do you ever have the moment when you're wearing your glasses and you're looking for them? That's how I feel right now.
Yeah.
But my mat had got stuck somehow in my gas pedal, and it wasn't releasing the gauge. And then I sat and said something about, I said, God, then you must not have wanted me to drive.
Right.
Right.
Maybe you prevented me from an accident or something that I couldn't foresee, that you protected me even in my not knowing.
Right.
And my car wasn't able to go, and there was nothing wrong with my car. So I'm driving her. But just like moments like that, you have to still find the good in it and don't always.
But that's when you can find joy, because you're looking for the lesson or the blessing in a situation.
Yes.
And I think so often we have been so self-centered that we always look at what does it mean for me?
Yeah.
Like it's interrupting my plan. It's interrupting that we don't look around and say, God, what are you really trying to say to me in this?
Trying to say to me.
What's the lesson?
And sometimes the lesson or the blessing is so rich but small that we could miss it.
Yeah. We overlook
that we could miss it.
Looking for light, camera, and action, and it's something so simple but still important. So yes, that is beautiful.
I think that the joy, also recognizing your joy, is a part of that journey. When you recognize that that's part of who you are, when you rediscover yourself, that helps you understand. And you can't have the joy until you come to that realization. When you said you sat in it, you sit in it. That's when you recognize that, okay, this is not situational. I don't need this person to make me happy. My joy comes from within me. So I think that is so important.
I think that we as women have been sold a bill of goods for a long time. And we've been told to be other people, to be like this, to do like that. And, and there is something to be said really for loving the skin you're in and really getting to know the woman that you are and being happy and proud of that woman.
Yes.
And that's a journey, and it always changes because we're always changing. But if I look back over my life, how many times that I looked in the mirror and only saw the flaws and never saw the beauty?
Yes.
Because that's really how we're taught to see ourselves. We look in and automatically we start fixing something because it's got to be something wrong. Instead of saying, wow, look at this beautiful thing that God created.
And that's that bill of goods.
And if he wanted us to be
by everything else, you're supposed to be like this, and you need to be like this in the church, out of the church. But we have that's that bill of sale you're talking about. It is so, oh my gosh.
But if he wanted us to be cookie cutters, he would have made us all the same.
He made us all that way. Yep.
He didn't.
No, he did not.
And we're uniquely fit and wonderfully made for who we are and what we're supposed to do.
I am.
And for the purpose that we were sent there for.
For that purpose.
And when we start defining ourselves by what other people think or their expectation, we do ourselves a disservice. And when you were talking about, that happiness, like we employ so many people to be a part of our happiness. And we need to unemploy them. Like we giving them jobs to make us happy. And when they don't,
absolutely,
we are upset. Well, no, that is not their job. Like they can enhance what you already have. Someone could come along and enhance your happiness, but you got to have it to start with, or that joy. And so I think we need to redefine and reevaluate our circle. Sometimes that means letting go of people, places, and things.
Yes.
And we also have this thing where like, well, I've known her for 30 years and, I grew up with that. Okay. But sometimes our season is over and we keep people in our lives when their season is ended, but we keep them around just because we don't want to hurt anybody's feeling or, my mama, I know your cousin, and they do a disservice to you because when you start to share your purpose and your dream, they don't have a heartbeat of that. They don't understand. And so instead of encouraging you, like, why would you want to do that? Girl, and you start listening to these people who aren't designed as God has designed you. And so we have to be careful who we let in our air gate, and all of that stuff, because it does affect us and, what we are sent here to do. So identifying that, owning that, knowing who we are is just a beautiful thing when you can walk.
One thing that we have to remember is, and I'm learning it so much in these days, is sometimes we have to shut our mouth.
Yes.
Because sometimes we're so busy telling our vision, our dream, or our plan, and then people think that once you open your mouth that they can add in and they can input and they can help you change and shift and and you shouldn't do it this way and you should do it that way, and sometimes all we got to do is put the work in.
Yes.
And trust God to direct us on the path.
Yeah.
He really will put the right people on the path and sometimes it's not even the person that you're thinking about.
Yes. That is so true.
I mean, because I tell my children, people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Yeah.
We have to grow to the point where we recognize when they are. And that reason, we think that this person is supposed to be in there for a reason, but it's somebody else. That's surrendering to that and allowing things to come as they're supposed to be and not trying to make them happen.
And that helps us not to replay seasons that we should be moving out of.
Yes.
Good.
Sometimes we can't move on. So there's two things that we do. We either stay in a season because it's comfortable.
Yes.
And we know it.
Ooh,
I'll stay in that misery because I know what it feels
that feels
like.
so good. Right.
And it's scary to move on to
yes.
So sometimes we stay in a season too long just because we're comfortable.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we have to replay a season because we didn't get the lesson of the season. And I don't know about anybody, but I don't have time to keep replaying the same.
No, man.
Like, I don't want Groundhog Day anymore. Like, God. You're doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
That's what's called insanity when you're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different response. So I can't go to the same places and be with the same people and do the same thing and expect a different outcome.
Yes.
Some people are just who they are and where they are. And it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you dislike them or you hate them. You just have to move forward.
Exactly. And everyone's not going to understand that.
Yes.
But it's okay.
It's okay. And sometimes you're holding them back too.
Yes. That's true.
Because you won't let go.
When you say you're holding them back, like in what way? Like elaborate. I like that.
Yeah, well, sometimes because we won't let go, we don't help other people grow.
Yes.
Okay.
They can always fall back on us. Right.
Yeah.
They can always fall back on. You're always going to be there. Sometimes you do have to walk away so some people can become the adults that they're supposed to be.
Yeah. No, that's true. It's so funny you say that.
That's deep right there.
Even with our adult children.
Amen.
Like I'm learning that in this season. Like, my daughter will always say, he's not gonna fall. He's not gonna go any further than the ground. Like he's gonna get up. Like sometimes we think that we're helping, but it turns into enabling. And so you gotta pull that.
It turns into enabling, but it also can turn into handicapping.
That's true.
Because if someone is enabled for too long, then they almost can't learn the lesson that they're supposed to learn, and then you end up taking care of them because you handicap them.
Oh, girl, that's so good. That's a podcast by itself.
Right. And then we're mad and resentful because they won't grow up, but you stunted them as a child.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they can't grow up. They don't know how to do the thing that they should be doing because they never had to.
Yeah.
If our parents carried us all the time and never put us on the ground, we would never learn that we could crawl. And then we would never try to pull up and learn that we could walk. If we don't walk, we can't run. If we have to learn balance. There's so many things that we have to do in order to do it. You know what I mean? Like you can't just think walk. You got to actually be on the ground, and your feet have to be on the ground, and you have to pull up, and your balance you have to wobble a little bit. You also have to fall.
Yeah.
You don't even know
Oh,
how to
that's awesome.
stabilize yourself if you don't come off balance.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a part of that process, that active learning.
Yeah. That's that part of self-care and wisdom. My oldest daughter, she knew how to walk, but she knew how to just sit there until somebody would pick her up.
Mhm.
And I caught her walking. So you're right, that part that we don't allow them, we have to step away. And that's what she was doing. She's like, okay, why would I walk if you're gonna pick me up?
Mhm.
I caught her walking one day and I was like, oh, this girl know how to walk. And it wasn't that she had practiced it before. So that's that growing and opening up and evolving that we have to grow ourselves, but allow other people to grow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
It's so true that you say that. I even think about my son, as you know, Nicholas, my special need, my young man with autism. Let's say that.
Yes.
And so they had a holiday party at his place where he lives, and I went and just looking at him in his environment. So I had gone in the kitchen to throw my plate away, and he was taking the trash out. And I said, he takes out the trash. That was like, Nicholas knows how to do everything. She goes, we don't even tell him. He takes the trash out. He took it downstairs in the basement. He came back with a new trash bag and put it in. And I'm looking at him and I'm saying, like, now if he lived with me, he'll not take trash out. I'll bet you he does his laundry, he sweeps floors, he helps in the kitchen. So looking at him and that independence, and I'm like, I had to let him go in order for me to see that. But I was just like, well, when I made the decision, I'm like, oh my goodness, I was him, and I was like, I prayed about it, and God gave me peace about it.
Yeah.
But even in his life, I needed to let him become the full potential of who he is as an individual and live life excellent on his level, not as I defined it on my level. And so just watching him, I went home and I was just so proud of him. I was just like, he is really just thriving in this environment, and he loves it, and they love him there. And he is doing things that I would be doing for him at home. His laundry, I would never ask him to take out the trash. Sweeping, washing dishes. It's just like, okay.
I just want to say this is an example of, you can't tell everybody, because I know that you wrestled with that.
Yeah.
And people be like, no, don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah.
But look where he has, because you kept your mouth shut, as you said.
Exactly.
And followed God in your heart.
Yeah.
And look where it is now.
Yeah.
That is so important.
Some people.
Yes. And what just came to my mind is, if you did not go through the pain of letting him go, you would not be able to experience the joy of seeing him thrive.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
I tell you, she's my biggest hero. I'm so proud of her when it comes to me, in general, but she just, oh my God.
And there were even family members like, why are you doing this? Like, why would you do that? I'm like, because I need to prepare him for life without me, first of all.
It's true.
It is not the responsibility of my elder children to take care of him. It's their responsibility to oversee it, make sure he's good, but they have their own lives. So we can put them in a place, and I be here to see it happen and partner with this house and this team. What greater partnership in that? So he knows mom's still here, but this is where I live. And girl, when he comes and when it's time to go, he is getting on his jacket. He's going out that door.
But you get to see him experience a level of joy that he might not have ever experienced, because he has his tribe.
Exactly. That's exactly. That's so.
And we all need to have our people who know us, who embrace us, who push us, who tell us, girl, that is stupid. Don't do that. Like, we have to have those people who speak to us to tell us the good, the bad, and the in between. And he needed that too. In his way, in a way that he could receive that. And if I was like, if any woman is listening, you need those people. We so often we're looking for yes people in our life. To just confirm everything that we want to do.
To make us comfortable.
You really need those real people to say, did you really think about that? Did you pray about that? Now that don't seem like it goes with you. Really him? Like, you need those people to help question you and you question them, because you trust them enough to love you in the good and bad. You know, they're going to be there. They're not going to judge you. They're going to be there.
Absolutely. That is so, and that's important that, we keep our circle. I was like, keep your circle small. You don't have to have, oh, I gotta have all these friends. Those trusted people that are gonna be, like you just said, no, girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you didn't think this was
Yeah, that ain't you.
And you can honestly know that they have your best interests at heart and that they're coming from a place of love and not coming from a place of just trying to, tear you down.
Do that.
And you can trust their word. You know what I mean? And still, and they'd be like, no, we're gonna pray about that because that's off.
But your circle shouldn't fall apart at the first sign of criticism.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
On either side. Like, if I can't tell you how I honestly feel, then I do need to take a step back because maybe you don't fit my circle for now where I'm going. And sometimes, I know I struggled with friendship all my life. I'm one of those type of people. I'm a friend. Like, I'm gonna give you, do it all. I'm gonna do all. And I had to realize that, one, I can't expect to find myself in every person.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
What I do from my heart, and I do it because that's what I do. But I can't put that on you. You're not me. And I had to learn how to accept people for who they are. But I had to learn that I was enough to be accepted for who I was.
Yes, that was a lesson. I had to learn that too. Yeah. Always trying to fit in, always trying to be that. And you just can't. You can't. And that's not who we are. That's not who we're designed, like you said.
And then sometimes we will dim our light to be comfortable around people. No. I'm taking the shade off the lamp.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the brightness, then you will have to exit the building. Like, stop dumbing down so that makes people come. Shine your light to make them uncomfortable.
Right.
Okay?
Exactly.
Don't, we sometimes do that. We become small around certain people because we like, oh, they're going to say, no. We have to break away from that.
But that's
my daughter Tyler taught me an amazing lesson that I didn't even realize until I looked back.
Your dad,
and she was one of those type of kids that no matter what, like, I remember they had her and Shalana have the same birthday. So this one year we had a sleepover, and like all the girls from the church came. It was like 16, 18 girls here.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Tyler just didn't care. Yes. Tyler didn't care. Tyler was a bookworm. Wow. Tyler went to sleep when she was tired. There was no peer pressure. Okay. And we looked, it was probably about 10 o'clock that night, and all the girls were playing. And Tyler got up out of the game, went and got in her bed, took her book, pulled her covers over herself, and went to sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, how can she sleep in all this? But she was so comfortable with who she was then that it didn't matter that there was this whole peer pressure full of, everybody else doing everything else.
Yeah.
It was about, this is where my comfort zone is.
Yes.
I love
and that's what she did. And I didn't think about it then, but when I think about it now, like, she was never moved by what the crowd was doing.
That is.
And what a blessing it is to have that from a young age, because we struggled with.
Yes, absolutely.
We struggled.
Like, oh, should I do this because they're doing that? Oh, do I? Oh, I like that. You didn't. It wasn't anything you liked.
To be going along.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was hard for me growing up because I grew up very different with a bunch of people who were very similar.
Okay.
So we didn't talk the same language and we didn't do the same things. Like, when we were growing up going to Regent Street, we came from Quincy. So like my school was different. My vocabulary was different. Okay. Like everything was different. My mother, I was on restriction. I wasn't ever on punishment. That would be the talk of, that was the laugh, the joke. Like, oh, Charlene can't even be on regular punishment. She's on restriction. That's, that was what it was. And it was hard for me in the beginning because I felt like I was on an island.
Yes.
And I wasn't. And I had to learn. I wrote a book right during the pandemic. And it's called H.E.R. And one of the things that I talked about in the book was I always thought different was wrong. I didn't learn. It took me a long time to learn that different was just different.
Yeah.
And I had to
Not bad.
accept that different was just different.
It's not bad at all.
It's not wrong. It's not bad. If we're all the same, how do we learn from each other? How do we grow?
Exactly. So you mentioned that you wrote a book. So tell us where we can find your book. And we realized as we're talking, like we didn't formally like introduce you as who you are. So while you're talking about the book, just give us your name, tell us the book, and where we can find it.
Absolutely. So I am Charlene Minds Smart. My husband hates that I kept my minds, but when I was growing up, my sister was a hyphenated name, and that was the coolest thing to me. So I had to have one as well. I often say just a woman on a journey. I'm just on a journey to becoming the best possible me. And on this journey, I wrote this book, and the book is called Hello, Fear. And it is my conversation with fear that helped me identify, confront, and conquer the fears that were in my life.
Wow.
You can find it.
We're gonna have to have you back for a whole other session.
Yeah, you are
many chapters. You are many chapters.
Thank you. And I'm learning to get comfortable with that. I wasn't comfortable with that when I was growing up. Like I just felt like, oh, you're doing too much. You're being too much. No. I'm enough. Just who I am. Like all the parts of me.
Yes.
And the website is www.hellofearbook.com.
Okay.
And you can go on. It's digital copy or a hard copy. I am currently in the process of writing a prayer journal / workbook to go along with the book, because one of the things that it was important for me to do in the book was to give the tools that I used to help me overcome the fears.
Yes.
And some of that is prayer and music and all of those things. And sometimes we just say it out loud, but people don't get an applicable illustration of how I use that. You know, like when we were going through difficulty in our marriage that God helped us to overcome, there were certain things I couldn't hear, I couldn't listen to because they would put me off into another place. I had to really focus my energy on me and God. Like, God, this is about my relationship with you. It's not even about if anything is restored. It's like, you tell me what you want to happen in this moment.
Yes.
Because he was doing a work on his heart on one end and doing a work on my heart on the other end. And I could have messed it all up if I wasn't following God and trying to get what I wanted out of the whole equation. Writing the book was hard for me because it was easy for me. I love to write, but it was hard for me because I've lived in this thing where everything had to be like on the outside, it had to look good. People couldn't know that there was anything wrong. And one of the things that God did for me in that time, in the difficulty, but also in the writing of the book, was helped me to realize that everything could not be private and secret because it couldn't be, if it was hidden, it couldn't be healed. And so I allowed him to direct me to the people who could carry me and help me heal during that time. And it wasn't any of the people that I thought it would be.
Oh my.
None of them.
Say that.
Because, you know, everybody had the, you know, if it was me and if that wasn't anything that I needed to hear. Like, when I tell you the way God nestled me in that moment, like I was scrolling on Facebook and found some woman's story, and she had written a book. So I went to her page and I got her book, and then she ended up being a mentor to me through that whole time. Someone, I never met her face to face, but her husband and her actually mentored me through that time and then walked with me and we were together. I would have never, like, it was nobody here.
Yeah.
Another time I was in school and I met this older woman. I was in a master's program at the time, and I met this older woman named Blossom, and she was going home to Jamaica for New Year's, Christmas and New Year's. And she said she woke up on New Year's Day and I was heavy on her heart. And she had talked to another friend and she said, have you talked to H.E.R? Because I haven't, she's been on my heart. She says, no, I haven't talked to her yet. And she called me all the way from Jamaica. Wow. And she was staying in the home of a friend who was an evangelist. This woman didn't know me from nowhere.
Wow.
And her friend had said to her, you said H.E.R.'s name several times today. Call her. The Lord has a message for her.
Yes.
Wow.
And they called me from Jamaica on New Year's Day. And this woman read my life to me from top to bottom, told me everything that was going on with me currently, but also proclaimed what was going to happen in the future.
Yes.
She talked to me for almost an hour on a call from Jamaica. And when I say got my life all the way together, like I knew that it was nothing but God. There was so many God moments that just said, if you trust me, I got you.
Yes.
It doesn't, you don't understand right now, but I got you.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I allowed God to carry me through.
Amen.
Because if I'd have gone on my own way, it'd have been a whole nother mess. Y'all be like, what is happening to Charlotte? She's crazy. What is going on? Because I would have been crazy. I would have lost my mind.
Yes.
In the middle of a mess because I was trying to do it myself.
You're trying to fix it your way. Oh my God. You mean that is your obedience to being able to hear what he's saying and follow through despite what anyone else would say. Look at the outcome now. You know what I'm saying? Look at the outcome, and we've got to trust the process, and it will come from the least likely place. Even as I begin to, have this vision about this podcast and creating this platform, and God was the deal, and I was like, who do you want me to work? I want, this is your project. Like, this is your idea that you've given me. Who do you want to work with? There are people who want to work with me. I'm like, no, it's not them. No, it's not, you can't. And I was like, and he brought Cassandra to me because Cassandra has the heartbeat of this vision, of this. If I wasn't here tomorrow, she could sit here and just know just how to flow. And we just flow so effortlessly together. And she's been like, you got to do something. She's like, you got too much information. Like, it's time for you to get out of the shadows into the fullness. And I'm like, and so I shared it with her. And it's like, here we are. I said, I'm going to be anxious. I'm not certain. I don't know all the answers. I'm not technical. But guess what? We're going to do it anyways. We're going to do it anyways because there are so many women with incredible, beautiful stories. And the Bible says that we are overcome by our testimony. And it is time for us to share, like, some of what we go through. It is not even for us.
It's not
a long time to get that.
It's not. Yes,
oh my goodness.
The other part of that the process is God had never asked us to have it all together. He never asked us to have all the answers. He just really wants us to make a step. And I have to remind myself of that, cause I'll get to a place where I'm like completely hands up, trusting, and then you're doing, and you're doing, and then you're doing, and then he tells you to take a turn, and you're like, well, wait, no, we're doing this guy, we're doing this guy, and you don't want to take that turn. And he's like, don't you remember what happened the last time you took a turn? Like, I had you the whole time. And I'm grateful that he's so patient with us. That he loves us so much that he gives us the opportunity to keep getting it right.
Yes, because he's given me so many things and I haven't followed through on them. I'm like, he's gonna be tired of dealing with it, but he keeps coming back and waking me up 3 a.m. and I'm like, all right, wake up, get my pen and paper. I'm like, I've got to see it through. I've got to. He's just like, and so it's great. I think about, as we're talking, this conversation is so amazing, so beautiful. But I think one of the moments for me, and I think you touched on this, but we didn't talk about it a lot, that when you were going through your cancer treatment,
Mhm.
there was a picture on Facebook where you shaved your head. And it captured me so much. I'm like, it was just for me, just such a pivotal moment. So the pureness of it, it was such a beautiful picture. And it was just empowering to me. I was just like, wow, I don't even have the words for it, but in that moment when you did that, like, what were you feeling? Like, can you talk a little bit about that for us? What type of cancer?
Absolutely. I will, in that very moment, I would say that I was scared, empowered. I was, all the possible emotions at one time were happening because, we put so much stock into what the world thinks of us.
Yes.
And people say, and I have said it before, my cancer journey, I gained more than I ever lost.
Wow.
And it took me a minute to get there.
Okay.
I gained more after the journey and through the journey than I ever lost.
Yeah. Are you able to share with us like what type of cancer you had?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll even share the story a little bit up into. So I was all of a sudden looked like I was gaining all of this weight.
Okay.
And, just like everybody else, I was like, oh, pandemic weight, I got to get it off, blah, blah, blah. And I'm literally noticing that my stomach is getting bigger. Like I looked like I was pregnant.
Okay.
And I just, in our head, because we don't stop and we don't want to, we're just like, oh, it's fine. It's this. And my daughters were getting really upset with me and they kept saying, I need you to go to the hospital, figure out what this is. So I didn't want to go to the hospital. So I send my doctor a message on the portal and I say, I've got this excess weight. It's probably gassy or something, but probably need to check it out.
Yeah.
And she sends me back some things to do, and we'll check back in a week. Well, in a week, nothing had changed.
Okay.
And so I said, well, I really think I probably need to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, okay, I want you to come in right away, but I don't have any openings right away, but I have a colleague that's right on the floor next to me. Mm-hmm. So that way, if I get you in with him, if he needs me, he can come pull me because then we'll be right there on the floor. So I go into the hospital. It's a Wednesday and it's this man, and I love my doctor and we talk really good, but there's this man and I can see he's kind of trying to like, oh, this is nothing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And he's like got his computer out and he's like, let me look up, bloating and COVID and see if there's any, he's doing all of this stuff. And he's talking, he hasn't examined me at all. He does this for about 15, 20 minutes. But then he touches my stomach. Okay. And my stomach is rock hard.
Oh, okay.
Like I don't even realize how hard it is until he touches it. Because when we live with something, we kind of be okay, whatever. But he touches my stomach and I see that there's no nothing. Like it's rock hard. And immediately his face changes.
Okay.
To get you in to have an ultrasound. And he's on the phone trying to get them to see me that day, but there's no openings.
Wow.
So I have to go back the next day to do the ultrasound. Mm-hmm. And they're doing an ultrasound. They want to do a abdominal and a vaginal ultrasound because they want to see this from all sides. We've all had children, so we've had ultrasounds. They're not that long.
Mm-hmm.
I was in this ultrasound for over 2 hours.
Wow.
And the ultrasound tech can't say anything because they are not to read the ultrasound. Yeah. So she just keeps, twisting and pushing and moving angles and she's doing all this. But I can see there's a puzzled look on her face. Okay. And she says, oh, the doctor is going to call you after they release me after this 2 hours. So Wednesday, a doctor's appointment. Thursday, an ultrasound. Friday, I get a call and a scheduled appointment for the next Wednesday to another doctor. So my doctor calls me to schedule an appointment for me for another doctor, a specialist.
Okay.
They still haven't said anything. I get into, so my husband and I go on the next Wednesday, and they told me the doctor's name and told me the floor, but they didn't tell me the department.
Okay.
So as I'm walking into the department, I see gynecological oncology.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's the first sign that there's something.
Yeah.
So I go into the room, and this sweet doctor comes in and he says, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything with you. There is a mass in your stomach. I don't even know if it's cancerous. I just know it is so large that it has to go now.
Wow. Okay.
He said, my first thought is that it is ovarian cancer, but I don't know if it's cancerous or not. We don't have time to wait for a biopsy or anything like that. We want to get this out now.
Okay.
So the mass was 22 centimeters by 21 centimeters. It was the size of a small watermelon.
Wow. Okay.
That was on a Wednesday. They scheduled scheduled a CT scan on Monday. So wait, look, back up. I had a doctor's appointment on Wednesday, an ultrasound on Thursday, a CT scan on Friday, another doctor's appointment on Wednesday, a CT scan on Monday, surgery on Friday. So all of this happened within 2.5 years.
Yeah.
They go in, and it's still kind of like that COVID time.
Yeah.
So literally Will could only come to the waiting room with me. And then I have to walk back to face this on my own. I'm just so grateful that I didn't go by on my own. I went with God the whole time. It was something about, even when the doctor spoke to us, God allowed a peace to come in the room like I had never felt before. That, you know, the devil thought the word cancer was supposed to kill me.
Yes.
My daddy died of cancer. That was supposed to just take me out.
Yeah.
And God allowed a peace that I would never, ever forget. I've never felt that kind of peace before, and I want to feel it again. That's how peaceful the moment was. That here this doctor was saying the one thing that I didn't want to hear, but at the same time God was ringing in my ear, it's all okay.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And I walked in the back, and I was laying in the bed, and I was singing, and I was rejoicing, and I was telling God, thank you for it. It was going to be a beautiful outcome.
Yes.
And I remember they rolled me into the operating room, and then, you know, it's done. And I wake up in recovery, and the nurse is doing what she's doing. And I asked where my husband was, and she remembered that she hadn't called him and told him I was in recovery. So, she calls him, and he's a frantic mess. Like, he wouldn't even come home. He stayed in a hotel right across the street from the hospital, because he was like, I'm not going anywhere. And then the doctor called him. And when he said, when I talked to the doctor, all he kept saying was, it was big. It was big.
Wow.
So it was stage 4 ovarian cancer. They don't know how long it had been growing inside of me. I had a complete hysterectomy, and they took the lymph nodes and everything. And the first thing the doctor said was, we got it all. There's nothing left inside of her.
Wow.
And so in my first brain, I thought, okay, now that's it. That's over.
Right.
But then go back for your 6-week checkup, and he says, well, we want to do 6 rounds of chemo. And that was a harder pill for me to swallow, but I knew it was going to be okay. It was a harder pill for me to swallow because it was going to be over time.
Mhm.
Like, it wasn't just going in for surgery and coming out. It was, I have to go every 3 weeks, 6 times to deal with.
Yeah.
And you get the whole thing that you're gonna lose your hair, you're gonna this, you're gonna that. And I had convinced myself, I said, God's not gonna let me lose my hair. He knows how important it is to me.
Yes.
And I lost my hair.
Mhm.
And so that was one of the hardest. I can't lie to anybody. When I woke up that morning after my first chemo session, and they say about a week after your first chemo is when you'll start feeling, and so I woke up, I'm just starting to feel a little bit myself, and I do this, and a clump of hair comes out. And I said to my husband, I won't do that again. This got to come off. Like, I have to be in control of this piece. I'm not going to get up every morning and comb and there just be clumps. We can't do this. So he shaved my hair. I cried. He cried. Yeah, Will did. He shaved my hair. I cried. He cried. We cried together. We picked up the hair. We put it in the trash, and we moved on to the next thing. And when I say I gained more than I lost, I can't even begin to tell you how amazing God was through that whole process. Almost every single nurse or doctor that dealt with me while I did chemo was a believer. Like, my first session, I went in, and the woman came to do my blood pressure, and I said, "How are you?" And she says, "Well, I'm great by the grace of God." And I said, "Well, hallelujah." Like, you're in the hospital, and you can't really say, you're not supposed, they're not supposed to share into that. But God opened that door up for me, and he was like, "Nope, I'm going to make this as comfortable as possible, although it's hard." So the first chemo, chemo gets progressively worse. So the first chemo was hard, and I was down. I would have chemo on Tuesdays, and I would be down for till about Friday. Then I would start kind of feeling myself. I was still able to go to work. Like most people, my doctor kept saying, "Do you need me to give you a letter to take, time off?" And I was like, "No, I'm good." Like, my job was amazing. They were like, "Work when you can, don't work when you don't want to." Like, so they would know that when I would go to chemo on Tuesday, I wouldn't be in the rest of the week. And if I wasn't feeling well, I didn't go in the next week. But most times I was feeling well enough to at least go in for a half a day. Or work from home or whatever. And it got progressively worse, but God always progressively gave me something more. So I went to every chemo session with gifts for all the staff. Every session. Gifts for all the staff. I walked in with a smile. I never had to go through anything by myself. He went through, his job gave him the time. They was like, "Okay, Tuesday's chemo day. You're off on Tuesday and Wednesday so that you could take your wife and then you could be there with her the first day." He walked in the door. He's being Mr. Sunshine. Everybody, like, we're just talking to everybody. It was so empowering. And so my 5th chemo session, I would say, was my hardest chemo session. I was done. I was tired of it. I was tired of not feeling myself. I had hit a wall. And I walked in, and the receptionist, when I walked in, I was even a little bit late, and I walked in, and the receptionist said, "Oh my goodness, I couldn't wait for you to get here. I couldn't wait for you to get here." And I'm like, "Huh?" She had this woman at her church make me 2 prayer pillows. She had remembered my favorite color, and they had scriptures on them, and she couldn't wait for me to get there. Like, I was like, "Look at how sweet God is." Like, this was the day I couldn't handle it. I was feeling like I couldn't handle it. And she came in, she brought the prayer pillows, and she took pictures with me to send to the girl that made them. And she kept coming in, and she never would come in and check on me while I was in chemo. She was in the room that day, and it was just, and I just kept sitting there saying, look at
God.
Who is this God that I serve that knew that on my worst day, I needed all the strength?
Yes.
I mean, people were coming in, bringing me stuff. They have a massage therapist that does Reiki massage where it's non-touch.
Yeah.
And she came in, and I had Reiki every chemo that I was in. She came in and did massage, and we talked about the goodness of God, and I was able to play my music. It was amazing. And so I quickly decided that I had the blessing of having somebody to go with me every time.
Yeah.
And everybody else doesn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So God gave me the thought, and actually I was talking to my younger brother, Corey, who lives in New York, and I kept saying, oh, I want to do something. Maybe I'll, do hats, or maybe I'll do such and such to lead for the women. And he said, that's not you. Think about something that is about who you are, Charlene. And I prayed about it. And God told me to get this book. So I got a leather book. And I spent my last chemo session filling the pages of the book with scriptures and encouraging words and all kinds of things, but left lots of blank spaces so that other people could add to. And wrote a letter on the beginning to say that, that I wanted to leave a word of encouragement for anybody who might be doing this on their own.
Wow.
And probably about maybe a month, 6 weeks after my last chemo, one of the side effects for me was, because I'm already anemic, my blood sugar went down really, really low.
Okay.
So my doctor had decided that I needed to have a blood transfusion. So they sent me back to the same infusion center that I got chemo from to have this blood transfusion. So it was a little weird because, how you're feeling like I've escaped, like I'm done now, I graduated, it's done. But then I have to go back in the same place. But I realized why God sent me back there. Okay. Because he sent me back for that same book. So I was already feeling sad. And I was low, and I was feeling a little sad because I was like, I'm ready for this to be over. I'm back to life. And here I'm feeling like I'm at a setback. And I go in the waiting room, and the book is there. So at first I'm like, I'm gonna feel sad if nobody wrote anything, or, but then I could, curiosity, nosiness makes us still go ahead and pick it up. And I picked up the book, and I started going through the pages, and people had written messages in the pages. And then I'm flipping through the pages, and I get to this page, and it says, God often sends us angels at the times when we need them most. We don't always know where to see them, where to find them, or how to look for them. Thank you, Charlene, for being my angel on the day when I was feeling down. I opened your book, and I found God, and I found encouragement. Thank you for being my angel.
That's everything right there.
What? I am bawling. I'm sitting here like, what? But when I say I gained more, I gained that. Like, I wouldn't have had that otherwise.
No.
I gained the ability to be able to say to somebody else, you can make it.
Yeah.
I gained the ability to say, if I went through it, you can go through it too.
Yeah.
I gained the strength to be able to stand and go with it with grace and say, God is taking. So in that moment when I'm standing there with my husband, who had been supportive of everything, and I'm in this gown, and I had a wig in my room. So we stayed at the hotel because I worked the gala, and I had a wig, and it was like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But I'm rushing because I'm doing the work and I'm doing whatever. And I did my makeup, and I was like, you know what? Forget it. They're going to see me in all this glory. And I made a quick decision in that moment to walk and do it just completely in all of who I was.
Wow. That's brave. And
yes, and I didn't realize, like, I was rushing so much that God had to have it happen that way. Because if I had a lot of time to think about it, I would have been like, oh, I don't want nobody to say nothing. I don't want nobody to ask me a whole bunch of questions, blah, 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 blah. And I just did. And it was the most powerful moment for me to walk and be okay. And I'm not somebody who even likes taking pictures. And somebody was like, let me get a picture of you and my brother. And I'm like, geez. And I'm like, wow, like, how did that, like,
liberty, girl. Liberty.
No, and there was a few things that God did in that moment. I wasn't able to wear a wig the whole time. I just couldn't. Every time I put one on, I felt like I was being false.
Okay.
Because I needed to be in the moment for me. That's not saying that anybody else is going through that. You have to do but for me,
for you.
It was there was a moment when my vanity was more important than the process, that God let this moment help strip me from that.
Yes. Okay.
That makes sense.
And so like I got into this place where I was like, I'll throw a cute scarf on, I'll do something, whatever. And then it was in the times when I went with nothing at all that I felt the most like myself. Because that's who I was in that moment.
Yes, beautiful.
Authentic. And God had to allow me to embrace that moment.
Yes.
And so like even with this natural hair coming back, and I don't always like it. It doesn't always feel like me, but it's embracing the moment that I'm in. Yeah. So like, I was sharing with you guys earlier, I have a therapist. I have a Christian therapist, and we were talking, and I said, I don't want to hide behind, I'm just going to be me. And she said, stop. The Holy Ghost just told me to tell you to stop. You can be whomever you want to be in this moment. You're not bound by your hair. So you don't have to stay bald. You don't have to wear it natural. If you want to braid your hair, if you want to put a weave on, if you want to put a wig on, you've already gone through that moment. You can embrace whomever you want to be at this moment. So there'll be a day when I'll go a ponytail on. There's a day like when I went and got it braided, when I knew it was long enough to get it braided. And I felt that like that's who I was before cancer. And so I wasn't going to allow cancer to steal who I am now.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to be a martyr.
No, absolutely.
I just have to walk through the process that God is taking me through.
Yes, exactly. And that's beautiful that you said taking you through, like this is your individual journey. Right. This is your, so you don't have to be like anybody else. Your identity is in Christ. Right. So you don't have to be like anybody else. You can walk through your authentic process of who you are, and that's why it's liberating. That's why it's empowering. That's why you feel your most self when you're doing it, because you are authentically being who you are. And
God allowed me to walk with this with strength and grace.
Yes.
And I am grateful for that. Like, and it is not to say that anybody else, if you were really sick or if you got depressed or if you, like, I had my moments. Believe me, like I had those people that I could call on. I remember one day I was at work. I got up and I didn't feel well that day, but I went to work because I felt like if I stayed home, I was just going to feel worse. Right. Yes. So I get into the office and I go into my office and I close the door and I begin crying. And out of nowhere. And I picked up the phone and I called somebody and I couldn't even say anything. And they were like, are you okay? And I was like, no. And she said, what is wrong? I said, I'm tired. And she said, and it's okay to be tired.
Absolutely.
You're tired of being sick right now. You're tired of going to the hospital. You're tired of not feeling yourself. Yes. It is okay to have your moment. Have it.
Yes.
Okay. And at the end of your moment, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to get up because I'm not laying in this, wallowing in this puddle of tears. Like, and I cried and I probably was in my office for about an hour, just getting myself together. But then I got up and there was a young person that needed something and I was able to provide them what they needed in that moment. Like, it's okay I need to tell every woman, on your journey to healing, evolving, and redefining yourself, it is okay. You are going to have moments where it doesn't feel good. You're going to have moments when you feel by yourself. You're going to have moments that you don't understand. But I promise you, if you hold on to God's hand, he will guide you through every one of those moments.
And on the other side of all of that is beauty. It's the story. You get to share that going through that process. So it's okay, like you say, to have all those doubts, fears, but don't give up. Like keep persevering, keep pushing, because on the other side of that, it's liberty, it's freedom, it's all of it. And you're gonna be able to walk through that, and then you can reach back and grab the hand of somebody else.
But see, that's the beauty right there, because not only do you get free, you can learn how to help somebody else get free. And guess what? We don't want to just be free by ourselves. I mean, how much fun is it having a free party all by yourself? I'm free. You want to see your sisters free too.
And that's what we're trying to say in this podcast. We want you to know that no matter where you are in your healing process, that it's okay. No matter, you could be in the beginning, the middle, it's okay. Somebody else has been where you've been. And so as we unfold these stories and they hear the meat of these stories, it's encouragement for you. It's creating a path of light for you to walk through, that you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to do it in silence, that there are other people here really to cheer you on. And so that is the beauty of sharing these.
It's sort of like a marathon. When you watch the marathon, if you look at the marathon, there's people all along the route cheering. It's like it's 26 miles. The Boston Marathon is 26 miles. But there are people all along the route cheering, because some of them have been where you have. Now, some people start the marathon and don't finish, but they might do it 10 years before they get to the finish line.
That's right.
It's not a problem. It's just, that's why I often say it's a journey. I'm on a journey. It's not, I'm not at the end of my journey. I'm not to the end until I die.
That's right.
That's right. Every day I'm evolving and I'm changing and I'm growing and I'm learning something new about myself. And once I get to the end of one thing that I think I've overcome, I'm going to be at another thing that I have to overcome. I wrote a book of fear. Guess what happened right after I finished that book? The biggest fears in my life came saying, "Oh, okay, you think you overcame us? Here I am. I'm right in your face." I had to battle more fear in the 2 years after writing that book than I thought that I did writing it before, because the enemy doesn't want us free.
No, absolutely not.
The enemy doesn't want us free. And one of the things that I say in my book is I likened it as fear and its friends, because sometimes fear and those things are so comfortable. We know how to be in them. We know how to be insecure. We know how to be afraid of speaking up. We know how to do that. So it's easy to keep doing that. And then complaining that we're doing it.
That's like, does that call insanity?
But that's why we have to grow out of friends.
When you really get tired of
that are
yourself,
very comfortable. Oh, sorry.
But when you really get tired of yourself,
we'll be sad. You know, and they just be like, "Yeah, come on, girl, we're gonna have a pity party. It's all right." But they want to keep you there. But you have to push past it, because God has already designed for you to be in a different place.
And most times when people want to keep you there, it's because they don't know how to get on the other side.
They don't know how to get out of it.
They're comfortable. So if you start to move in a different direction, now you're making them uncomfortable, causing friction. So let's all just be misery love company
right here.
It really does.
Let's all not grow together. Let's just not grow together, shall we?
You know, I think about it like if you're making homemade biscuits and they tell you to put the biscuits right next to each other, because they need each other to grow, to get to their highest to tallest. They need each other. If they're just in there in the middle, they can grow up, but sometimes they slump over, or they go here. But bumped up
against each other. Because I didn't know that.
I always throw a bacon analogy in there somewhere. It always comes up. But they grow up. It's like they need each other to grow up. We need each other to grow up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Because the opposite is you could grow this way, but you're still at the same level.
Yeah.
Still at the same level. Yeah.
You're still at the
No
same
depth
level.
to you.
Yeah.
You don't have any depth to you,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So in this I mean, this is awesome. I'm like, we're not even getting to all our questions,
I
but
know.
we're so in this process of learning about yourself and kind of redefining, we talked about self-care. So I always like to say self-care is not selfish. We can't pour from an empty cup. So have you developed ways to fill your cup? When I say that, your self-care cup, and what's some of the things that you're doing?
So I am developing my self-care cup.
Okay.
And I say that because after I was sick and then well, I realized that it felt harder to take care of myself.
Okay.
And that seems like it doesn't make sense, but it almost felt like, so a couple of things happened to me. Like I was at work and I felt like I had to work harder because people had covered me while I was gone.
Oh.
And that wasn't anything anybody said. It was something I put on myself.
So,
Yes.
okay.
Until I had a coworker who just finally said to me, "Would you stop being a fool? What are you doing?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "You don't have to work harder. Like you can't make up what was gone.
Mhm.
We covered you because we love you and we were there for you."
Mhm.
That was hard to hear. And
Mhm.
it was hard to hear because we're the people that take care of everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
So let somebody else take care of you. It's like, come on, I don't need you. I'm good. I'm strong,
Yeah.
And so I had to do that. My daughters they are my self-care whips. Like you're not feeling well. Why are you going to work? Or did you do this? Or did you go get a massage? Or did you go get your nails done? And they are. So two things happen with that. Sometimes I get mad because I feel like, mind your business. I'm the mother. I don't need you to tell me what to do. But the second part of me says they saw me when I wasn't well.
Yeah.
And I have to remember that they processed a bit of trauma to see me not well.
Yes.
Too.
Mhm.
That took a lot for me to wrap my mind around.
Yeah.
Because I kept hearing, y'all stay the kids and let me stay the mama. And you stop telling me what to do.
Yeah.
But I had to realize it was coming from a good place.
Mhm.
So the other thing that happened in the midst of that, so right before I had surgery, I was given a promotion at my job. Like a job was created just for me. It didn't exist.
Nice.
A promotion was created just for me. That happened in April and I had surgery in June. So there was this thing in the back of my head that kept saying, "Tag, like they've entrusted all of this with me. And now I can't be 100% where I'm at."
Mhm.
None of them thought that. It was only me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Only me. And when I came back to work, everything just went back like it didn't happen. Like I can't even begin to tell you how amazing my job was to me. Like there's just no words that put it together. Like they just were amazing. And then I was back a year and I was given another promotion.
Wow.
Here I am thinking I hadn't done enough.
Mhm.
And they're saying, "We see what you've already done."
Exactly.
And so part of that self-care pill for me is I have to let God be God.
Yeah.
Because he already had a plan. Like I've not been at my organization. I've just been there 5 years. And I'm currently the chief operating officer.
That's beautiful.
Like that doesn't make sense, but it makes God sense.
Yes.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
God.
And so I have been careful to make sure that I have balance,
Yes.
to take a nap when I'm tired.
Yes.
I would often say, I don't nap. I don't do that. Like, cause I'm a night owl. So what are you talking about? But sometimes your body's tired.
Yes.
I have to realize that my body is still healing from a journey that it went through.
Yes.
It's only been a year. Like November 15th was a year for my last chemo session.
Wow. Oh.
Just a year. And so I have to remember that my body is still doing what it's doing.
Yes.
And so that means that sometimes I'm tired and I gotta go to bed early or, and baking is for me one of my self-care love languages.
Yeah.
I don't have to eat anything. I can literally go in my kitchen. My family knows if I go in the kitchen and turn on the music, like stay out the kitchen, we go. And I've learned that I need the process of sometimes chopping something. Yes. Like it's a beginning, middle, and end. Like at the end, I have this process. So when I feel like life is feeling like this, I have to go in the kitchen and do something where I know that when I do this, it's going to do that. I'm going to put it in the oven. It's going to come out this.
And there's a product.
Therapeutic.
Yes.
So therapeutic for me. And again, music is always it. Like, and finding those times when it's just quiet.
Yes.
I'm busy. I'm a busy person. I like to be busy. I'm a worker. And I have to remind myself that there's times when I need to shut everything off, be in a room where I'm not with anybody else. I'm not talking. I'm just hearing. And sometimes that's hearing God. Sometimes that's hearing the silence of the room. Sometimes it is, hearing myself snore, like whatever it is in that moment that I need. I'm learning that that's what self-care is for me.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So flowing into that, what impact or fingerprint would you like to leave on the planet?
I'd love to leave the fingerprint that that envisions or embodies the fact that we are all beautifully broken, but that God does his best work in the beautifully broken. That like our stories all mean something, like that it's not supposed to be. So you guys know my dad. My dad was like king perfectionist. Like I when I got my first B, I thought it was an F. I thought there was no other grades but an A, and everything else was failing. And I realized I'm realizing more and more every day that the perfectionism really is just in what our story is. Like my story is perfectly Charlene. Just like your story is perfectly yours, and everyone else's story is perfectly theirs. And so the imprint that I would like to leave is that we're beautifully broken, but if we live and love and listen to God, we'll all be okay. We'll all be okay. And what okay is for me might not be what okay is for you. But it's not a comparison. We're not in a rat race.
Absolutely. It's a journey. It's not a race.
It's a journey.
Exactly.
So in all that you've gone through, what would you tell that little girl, the little Charlene, about all this that you've gone through now? If you could go back and give her some thoughts.
I think about that quite often, and literally I would tell her to slow down. To slow down and to enjoy the process. I think that so many times in our lives, we're so busy trying to get to the next place that we forget that we're supposed to be, there's beauty along the journey. We all were there. We all were the little kid waiting to be grown. And then when you got grown, you're sitting there going, well, this ain't what I thought this was going to be.
Adulting is not fun.
Adulting
no, it's
really not all it's cracked up to be.
So I would say slow down and to accept who I am for me.
Yeah.
Like that I am enough.
Yes.
It took me a long time to realize I am enough.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say far too long. I look at like this generation where they're just like, they just going for it. And I'm like, why didn't we have some of that? Like there's some part of that I would have loved to be okay with who I was. Like, I didn't want to be loud and wrong, but I wanted to be okay with who I was. And it took me a long time to be okay with who I was. And sometimes I have to remind myself, hey, aren't you okay with who you are? Like, because we still want to compare ourselves to the world or compare our journey to somebody else's journey.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You know, if I had my way, I would have went to college right from high school. I would have done all the things in this certain way.
Yeah.
But I got to go to school and I graduated and got my BA at the same time when my daughter graduated from high school and the other daughter graduated from middle school. Like, that's its own kind of beautiful.
Yes.
You know, I got to go back and get my master's at a time where I really would appreciate it. Like where I was working hard for it and it meant something to me. It wasn't just something to do to check off a box.
I did that.
Because I didn't have to do it. I was already on my job and I was already doing what I needed to do. I got to walk in that walk because I wanted to.
It was your choice.
I'm at a job now that I love because I want to be there. But it took me some jobs that I didn't like so much to realize that I didn't need to be there to be where I'm at now.
Yeah, absolutely. All part of the journey.
It's all part of the journey.
All part of the journey.
Yes. So I really would tell Charlene to slow down.
Okay.
To stop, smell the roses, experience what you're experiencing. Don't be such in a rush to get to the next place that you miss some of the beauty along the way.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's such a lesson to know.
Yeah, we could do that only.
I don't even know how to end this.
I don't either.
So good.
I mean, I can't wait.
Definitely coming back with you for more because there's many more. You have so much more to say, and we are eager to know. I think the last two questions I would ask is one is if you would say like I know blank now about myself.
That's easy for me. I now know that I am enough.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I never knew it before.
Yes, that's amazing. And this chapter of your life, what would you entitle this season or a chapter of your life?
Becoming.
Beautiful.
I am becoming more of who I am. Like, and that's so amazing. Like, you think you're at a place and then you realize it's just opening up so much more.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about the amazing things that God is still unfolding. Like, as much as he's already done, if he entrusted me with all of that, what more is there to come?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so amazing. I mean, I have enjoyed this conversation, and I said, I don't want to call it an interview. I want it to be a conversation.
Yeah.
Just your journey, your story, your strength, your rawness, your being authentically who you are. And, I love that you said you're becoming. So that is an ongoing process.
Yes.
ING. It's a continual process. And it's like, I haven't arrived, I'm becoming. And we all can take a lesson from that.
Yes.
And just walk in our authentic self because we don't have to be envious of
anybody.
Anybody, because what God has for you is for you. I don't care if 5 people have a coffee shop. If he tells you to open up yours, there's going to be a twist that there's something a little different because we're like, well, they're already doing that. But if he puts his blessing on it and he has assigned you to do it, then
Yes.
they might be 5 coffee shops, but yours is an anointed coffee
There's a
shop.
purpose
Okay,
and a reason.
Exactly.
it's anointed to be so.
Yes.
So we have to be afraid of stop being afraid of like, well, what are they gonna say? What if I can't do it? You know, almost. You know, I think about like Moses, right? He was like, well, I don't know what to say. Okay, come on, Aaron.
Speech.
I'm gonna send you some.
Yeah.
You know, and
Right.
taking our excuses away because this world needs to hear this type of stories and conversation. And as women, I feel like we just need to build each other up.
Tell each
And
other.
sometimes we can get petty and all the little nuances that women do. It's like, no, shaming each other or, you know, not happy for your sister who
Yes.
like who got a promotion and all, you know, like, well, how did she get it? You know what? Like, you know what? If you did that, girl, I can't wait what he's gonna do for
What
me.
he's gonna do.
You know, I'm
Right.
gonna rejoice in it with you. And so,
Your story is so inspiring. I didn't even know. I mean, I'm just in awe. Like I'm just so happy for you and proud of you, and it's just inspiring to me.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you are our guest, and I think that you are perfect to be our first one because
Absolutely.
you really set the standard high. So it can only go up from here because you're
Yes.
just amazing.
And we're gonna be coming back. We're gonna be
Yes.
coming back. You know, we also just want to do
Part
like
two.
panels with women, and you know, just maybe 5 women roundtable discussion. And so we're open to what God is going to do with this podcast and how He's going to take it. And so we're just open to and excited to see what's going to happen. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome
To be here. And so this has been a blessing, and you are a blessed woman, and we love you.
I love you.
You enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And know that I am honored to be here and honored to hear more stories.
Thank you.
That's what's going to help us all grow.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is not recording.